Hello, it's Leah. Welcome back to my series on creating an ideas book for junk journal elements. So we're making different little templates out of copy paper so that we can write our directions on here, and then we can refer back to this when we are making journals in the future, so we don't resort back to just our plain old pockets and tags. So we can do just a little foofier things, a little fancy. So today we are going to do an accordion pocket, and this is accordion pocket number 2. The first one that I did had little individual pockets within it. This one is a little bit different. It's got one big pocket, so it's kind of like those expando folders that you might have or have seen. This one uses the idea is that you're using like a focal image on the front that you're going to trim a little bit to make a flap, and then you're going to add a little policy closure to that. And then when you open it up, you've just got that nice little space in there that you could add some little goodies in there, and then it folds up super flat, of course, depending on how much stuff you put in. Okay, so I will warn you, this one is a little bit more detailed than some of the projects that I've done recently, but I saw it online. Somebody had posted pictures of her, so I had to do a lot of trial and error, and you'll still see that I've changed things a little bit in my directions based on what I learned from making this one. And this was like my third attempt at it to finally get to where like I understood what I was doing. And so hopefully I've taken out the guesswork for you, but there will still be a little bit of things that you have to figure out along the way, and I'll explain that in just a minute. So for this one, you are going to need kind of some extra tools and different things. So of course you're going to need whatever your focal image is. You're going to need some background paper, and then you're going to need some sort of paper, like a thinner paper that you're going to use to do your folding. I am using a workbook that I had, so it's a shorthand workbook, and these pages fold really nicely because they're a heavier weight book page, but they're not a cardstock. So you don't get those creases when you, or the cracks and stuff when you fold those edges. For your front and your backing, you are going to want a heavier weight paper, so probably a cardstock of some sort, or this, in this case, this is a postcard, these Edith Bolden postcards that I found. And so that's what I'm using for my front. So that you are going to want a little bit heavier because you're going to have your brads attached to that, and it's going to be kind of pulling a little bit with that policy closure. So you want to make sure you've got something sturdy to hold up to that pressure. Okay, you're going to need something to cut out whatever your closure is going to be. Policy closures tend to be circles, but they don't have to be. You do you, and that's kind of my motto. But in this case, I am using a circle punch. If you have circle punches, that's great. If you have die cuts that you could, or dies that you could use, if you want to freehand it, if you want to do squares or triangles or hexagons, whatever you want, because hexagons are the bestagons. So whatever you want. You're going to need some brads to attach that, some string, and then I pulled out some paper clips that I am going to use just to secure the project while the glue is drying, because it is going to have some pull. Like I said, you want to make sure that you get a really good seal on those edges and on this little flap. So we are going to clip those for a little bit while we move on and do something else. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. So everything is going to be based on your focal image. So whatever you want, your measurements are going to come from that. So you obviously want your background paper to be the width of this, and then it's going to determine like how big this flap is, how long your background is, and so I'll show you what I mean by that. So in this case, we are going to pretend that this is my focal image. Okay, so it would be the whole thing. We are going to cut off about 1.5 inches. This one I only cut off 1 inch mainly because I was working with a postcard, and so I didn't have as much room. I didn't have wiggle room in it. I also didn't want to cut the bird's head off because I thought that would be a little weird. And so I really only had an inch to play with. Half an or a quarter of an inch is flipped over here. So this is only 3/4, which I used a 3/4 circle punch. So for this one, I am using a 1-inch circle punch. So I want to make sure I have enough space here. Again, I'm still going to run up to the edge. I'm going to be at, 1 inch. But if you want this to be wider, that's totally fine. If you have more wiggle room, you can decide however you want to do that. But, I mean, an inch, inch and a half is probably, it just depends on what size circle you're going to use for your closure. Okay. So then your background is based on these measurements. So this in total, my original page would have been 6.5. So in this case, I'm going to want to subtract my score line because I'm going to score and fold over a 1/2 inch for this part. That's the second thing I learned, was to make sure that you're giving yourself enough space. I only had that 1/4 inch because of my image. I didn't want to cut off too much of that picture. So a 1/4 is fine if you're using art glitter glue because that holds really, really well. But just to be more secure, I think a 1/4 or a 1/2 inch or even like 3/8 would be a little bit better for that flap. So you just need your background to be whatever that total length is minus whatever you're going to score. So if you only score 3/8, then just subtract 3/8. You also have the option, if you are not using a focal image, if you're just using a piece of like scrapbook paper or plain cardstock, then you could even have like a hangover flap. That's totally fine. Again, you get to make this however you want. So that would totally work as well. And in that case, you would have to subtract whatever your hangover is from this background piece. So whatever that's going to be. Okay, so we've got those pieces, and then you're going to need a piece that is just the length of or the height of this front flap minus your score line. So the flap was 1.5. I am scoring at a 1/2 inch, so a 1/2 inch is going to be folded over. This is going to be an inch, and that's going to give me this little cover piece to cover up that brad. If you don't care if you see the brad, then you don't need this piece, but I don't like seeing it on that side. On this one, I didn't worry about it because you're not really going to see it because generally you're just going to be doing it like this. So I didn't worry about covering that one up. Okay. Then you need your papers that are going to be your folds. For these, I am scoring every 1/2 inch. So I wanted it to be 4 inches wide to give me 3 little peaks. So when I say peaks, I mean 1, 2, 3. So that's my little inside, think of it as like little pockets in there. Okay, and so that's going to give me 3 of those if I do it at 4 inches. You want your height to be, I just did it, so this was 5. I went 4 7/8 just because I don't want it to come right up to the top of that back. I want a little bit, that was another thing I learned, is I wanted just a little bit of space in between here. It doesn't look bad, but I had rounded my corners and I didn't round the corners on the little flap on the fold because that just would have been weird. So I want it just a little bit lower. Okay. All right. So first thing we need to do is do some scoring. Okay. And so we are going to grab our scoreboard. If if you don't have a scoreboard, you can always use your paper trimmer and just take like something pointy but not sharp. Like you could use a mechanical pencil without the lead pushed down, and then just kind of run it through the groove. But I'm going to score this at a 1/2 inch, and then that's going to give me my little hangover or flap to do my gluing, and I'm just going to give that a nice little crease. Then I am going to take these pages, you would have 2 of them, and then you're going to score at every 1/2 inch. So we'll just quickly do that to show you. Okay. And then you're going to start accordion folding. And I did crease mine in between because it really gives it a nice crisp fold. The reason that I went ahead and scored them is because I am doing 2 of them and I want them to be even. I wanted it to be able to have nice sharp lines, and so that's why I went ahead and did that. So you'll go ahead and accordion the whole thing, and magic of YouTube, I already have 2 made. That way we can start gluing and you don't have to watch me do all of the scoring and folding. Okay, so you're going to start with your background paper. Okay, and you are going to grab some glue, and then we're going to glue these on. So when you are looking at it, you want to have your 3 peaks up. Okay, and you're going to grab that right little edge, and that's the one you're going to glue on the left side. Okay, so we're going to put some glue on there, and then I'm just going to turn this so it is facing me. Again, my peaks are up, okay, because we want those to be on the inside. And then oops, I'm doing this on the wrong part. You want this to be at the bottom. Not paying attention, talking too much, Leah. Okay, so you want that to be at the bottom because that's where your flap is going to be. Get that glue off of there. Okay, so that is one. I'm going to go ahead and pop a paper clip on here. Just to, like I said, I just want to start getting these really glued down really well. You want that to stick. Okay, now we're going to do the next side. Okay, so 3 peaks up. This time you're going to grab the left, so you're going opposite. So for this one we went the right side to the right flap to the left side. This time we're doing the left flap to the right side. Okay, if you don't match those up, then your accordion is going to look wonky. Okay, and then I want to fold this towards me. Again, peaks are up, and we are going to glue that to the bottom. Hey, I got it right this time. Hopefully I'm not realizing I'm probably out of camera. Okay, so we're going to do that. We are going to pop some paper clips on there. Okay, now we're going to glue on our flap. Okay, so we're going to add some glue to that. You do want to have that folded when you are gluing this on, just so you get it right in that crease. So we're going to press that down really well, and then again I'm going to go ahead and secure those with some paper clips because you don't want that to fall off, especially with that security closure, because it might pull on it a little bit. Okay, so while we are doing that, now we'll set this aside for a sec, and we are going to, I'm just going to cap my glue so it doesn't dry out. We're going to make our circles. Okay, we grab a piece of paper. So I am doing 1 inch Actually, now I'm thinking about that because I changed my mind, and only did a 1 inch. I'm going to use a 3/4 punch for this. So I'm just punching 2 circles. If you only have thin paper, you can also build up your circles, and so you could cut multiple and then just glue them together and do it that way. So that's always an option. Okay. So then I am going to hold these together, and I'm going to punch my hole. This is always kind of an eyeball thing. I try to look at that little centerpiece and make sure it's kind of centered. Look at my edges and see that it's about center on there, and then go ahead and squeeze, and that is pretty darn good. Okay, so now I am going to unclip this. You're going to decide where you want your policy closure to go. For this one, because my bird is kind of in the middle, I obviously wasn't going to put the brad through his head. Again, it's all about like not, messing with the poor little birdie's head. So I did mine off to the side. If you want it in the center, that is up to you. So you put it wherever you want. I think I'll kind of go like right here with that one. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to place my circle where I want it to be, and then I'm going to punch through there, trying to hit that same hole. And that was pretty good. Okay, and so I can go ahead and attach that one with a brad. I do find that using bigger brads is a little bit better. Again, another thing that I learned and figured out for you. Simply because when you're tying the string, it gives you a little bit more space, a little more wiggle room. This one is pretty tight. As I've kind of moved the string multiple times and done it, I've worked it a little bit, so it's kind of popping up. But the bigger ones do work better for that. Okay, so now you're going to take your front piece, and you're going to see kind of where this is lining up and figure out where you want to put your next one. So you want them to be fairly even. Okay. Again, that's going to be determined by whatever your picture is on the front. So with that one, I kind of did it again off to the side. And then I'm just going to make a little mark on here of where I want to punch. I don't know if that one, oh, it just gets in there. So I get my little punch there, and then I'm going to go ahead and attach this one with a brad. Oops, if I don't drop my brad. There we go. Get that in there. Face down. Then we need, get those out of the way. We need to cover our back part. If you want to round corners, you can totally do that, or do like little edges, however you want to do it. So we're just going to get that piece on there. Definitely want to get it stuck around the brad. That is the bad thing about using a bigger brad, is you might see it a little bit more, but I don't think that's a really big deal. Okay, so we've got that covered. We are almost to the end, my friends. So now we're just going to pop off these paper clips. And we're ready to glue on our front. So you're going to glue on these little tabs and across the bottom, because you don't want your stuff to fall out. And I'm realizing we probably need a little dot of glue in our little accordions, just in case you got little bits in there. All right. We're going to pop that on top, press that down really well. I'm just going to do this while I am adding my string. Like that. All right, so now you want to take, I'm going to give it yourself a nice little tail to be able to tie your knots. And I just do one knot and then I wrap it around again to the bottom part, so I don't do my knots right on top of one another. Could have given myself an even longer tail, that would have been helpful, but that works too. And just give it a good pull, and then you can cut it. You can trim it pretty close to the edge. And then we've got, decide how, yeah, this works much better with the bigger brad. However much you want to have, however many loops you have. If you want a little tail, that works. I'm going to cut mine a little bit shorter, like that. Okay, and then if we pop these off, we are done. Okay, so that is our accordion pocket. We are ready to get this into our journal. Let me give you the directions. You're ready for your long list. Let me make sure these are getting, I'm gonna have to move that up. Okay, so we're starting by cutting half an inch off of the top of your front paper. So whatever your front paper is going to be, I put on there at half an inch or 1.5 inches to 2 inches, so it's totally up to you. You're going to score that top cut off at 1/2 inch. Then you're going to cut a backing paper the length of the full front, including that top cut off, minus 1/2 inch. Then you want to cut 2 pieces of book page. I did mine at 4 inches so I can get those 3 peaks. And then the top, so it's times the length of, or by the length of the top page minus 1/8, just to put it a little bit below. You're going to score every 1/2 inch, and that's going to be 7 times. So you'll have 7 score marks. You're going to accordion fold each of those pieces. You're going to attach those to the backing pages, making sure they are flush with the bottom. Then you're going to glue that top cutoff to the top of your backing paper and fold it on that score line. You're going to punch your 2 circles and then attach those with a brad to the flap and to the front paper so they line up. You want to make sure those are in connection or in line. And then you're going to glue your cover piece to the back of the flap, and then go ahead and attach your front page to the book page flaps and the bottom, and then add your string to close. Okay, so let's now glue this into our journal. We're going to go, need to start using some back pages. So that is what I'm going to do. I need a pretty big page for this one. Let's see. Yes, I can get both of those on there. So we're going to do some glue for that. Put my directions all the way here to the right. And then I can glue this here. You could also use this as a pocket with a top opening. If you just glued on 3 sides, you could do it as a side pocket. So give yourself some extra little things if you glued on 3 sides that way. Put our name on there. And we are done. That is accordion pocket number 2. So I hope you enjoyed this. Please leave me a comment and let me know how you are liking this series, what you think of this project, and if there's anything else you would like to see me create in the future. So thanks for joining me. See you next time. Bye, y'all.